two colleagues the next year announced to her freshmen that there wouldn't be any grades. She wasn't going to grade anything. She went home, had a sleepless night, went back to her class without talking to anybody, and said, you know what I told you yesterday? That's not true. I'm going to be giving grades in a traditional way, and I'm going to grade all your work and grade the test. Well, her two colleagues heard about it at lunch. They had an intervention. She went back the next day and said, you know what I told you yesterday about giving you grades? Okay, it was that collaboration, and I didn't know about any of this until it was over, is that she got cold feet, she was backing out, and then she backed in because they said, you can't back out, we made an agreement here, and that support was important. Experimentation, this is the part that makes people nervous, and they think parents are going to be upset, and what will your administration say, and you're experimenting. It's what teachers do every day. If we think that a quiz or test that we hand out has any validity to it, we're kidding ourselves. If it's teacher-made, it doesn't have that kind of support. We're constantly experimenting. And so what this does is it does give it some validity because you collect information on whether something actually is valid and reliable over time. I remember asking a teacher at a final exam, it was a geometry class, and they would assign administrators to help in these large group testing situations. And I asked her, I said, how old is this exam? And she said, oh, we must be using the same one for 15 years. And I said, has anybody ever studied the validity? And she said, oh, we don't need to. This is a math teacher, too. She said, because we just chart everybody's progress on it, and then a certain percent get A and a certain percent fail. And I said, but it changes every year? Yeah, well, yeah, it just depends on. I said, well, what if they all did really well? Well, that will never happen. Okay, it's that kind of not paying attention to it that makes me nervous. The experimentation you do when you're doing teacher research gives you that support. And I know in conversations, because one of the complaints that I got from teachers early on was the parents will never put up with this. They just want their kids to get into Harvard and Stanford, and they're not going to want any interference. And I said, well, we did a phone survey last year of all the students who had, of all the parents of students who were in teacher action research classes of teachers who were doing action research, and 88% said they supported the work that was being done. End of conversation. I had, a figure, we had done research, we had gathered information, we had actually talked to the parents, whereas it's in schools, if you're in a school, people just talk, well, in my experience, and research says, which is one of my favorite ones, which brings us to the next one, research-based. As Francis said, you go to the research. What I find is that you don't start with it because teachers' heads are not there. But once they start studying a problem, they want to know, well, what else has somebody written about this? There must be somebody else out there thinking these same kinds of things. And some of it's on the internet, some of it you find in journal articles. There's plenty of it because action research has been around for a while. So the research-based is your own research as well as what's out there. And you put the two together, and that creates a very solid base. And the last part was not so much a goal that I had for the teachers, but it was a goal for myself, which was to empower teachers and to change the school. And by changing the school, I didn't mean I had a vision of what the school needed to be and these teachers were leading the charge. It was just to bring inquiry into the school and change the way that people approach their classes and what they were doing. As far as teacher empowerment, a very short story. These teachers who got together and we were talking about what frustrates you the most. And what they all agreed on was grading. Kids fighting, having the calculator out, figuring out if I got one more point, so I'm going to fight to the death to get the one more point, so I got the B plus and not the B, and my egg. And I said, they're just doing what we taught them. We've taught them to do this, and they're doing it very well. We should be very proud. But if that drives you nuts, don't give grades. Well, you can't do that. Why not? It's a school board rule. You show me. It is, I swear it's not written in any school board policy that you have to assign grades. I can't find it anywhere. It's not state law. to give teachers the power, because they don't think they have the power, and they're tremendously powerful. And so just giving them the opportunity to question those types of things was important for me. And this is what the Action Research Laboratory does. All of this is on the website, by the way, if you want to see it there. We had collaborative sessions. They met once a month. We took an entire day. The first group I met with, they were so nervous about taking an entire day. They said, can't we just do a half day? Because what are we going to talk about? And how are we going to fill a whole day? And this was the first year with that group that said, you don't know what you're doing. After one day, they said, it was a half day. You know, it'd be a whole lot easier if we didn't have half of our classes and then have a sub teaching half of our classes, because what the sub did wasn't what I was going to do, and da-da-da. So from then on, we took a full day, once a month, off campus. That was extremely important. Anybody who meets on campus, I have to check, I have to see if the sub's here, I have to check my messages, I have to see if I got voicemails, emails, that one kid's you can't separate unless you're off campus. And where would we go? They'd come to my house, we'd go to a restaurant, we'd go for a walk in the woods. I don't care where you go, just get out of the building. And you realize that life goes on while you're in school. That's an eye-opener. There's a balance between content, expertise, and experimentation. And in the first number of years, for quite a few years, everybody on a team, it's 3 people to a team. Why 3? Because you can't hide in a group of 3. Had a group of 4 once, one person didn't talk. I mean, it proved it to me. And this was just intuition, group of 3. They all came from different departments. The reasoning behind that is if you get 3 English teachers together, and that's my background, they won't question why they're teaching Romeo and Juliet freshman year. They just won't. Everybody does it. It's an introduction to Shakespeare. I love it. I'll make the kids love it. You get a math teacher in there and they say, well, why are you teaching that? And you know what? They're hard-pressed to actually explain it. And it works both ways. So the first team was a social studies teacher, a math teacher, and a science teacher. And they didn't come in with one question. They came together because I twisted their arms, literally, twisted their arms. And when they got together, they had to decide what was in common that they wanted to study, but they each had a different question. But the umbrella was getting students more active in the classroom. That was the thing that held them together. A facilitator for each team. I was the facilitator for a number of years until I realized I couldn't be out of the building that many days a month. And the principal started noticing it, and so I asked some teachers who had been on the first team if they would facilitate other teams, which they did, and they did very well. Classroom observations of other teachers. Get an English teacher to go into a science classroom, and they see these are some of the same students I have, and they're very different in this class. The one that's a star in my class doesn't say anything in this class, and the one that I think is a numbskull is really a star pupil, and very different point of view. And it's not threatening because nobody's judging you. It's just to get a sense of what it is that other teachers are doing. The research is a review of existing literature, and that I would generally supply as the facilitator so they didn't have to go to the library, and I mean, at least I would start them. And then to do their own research. We started a program of going to a conference the first year because they were still learning. After the first year, I said they had to present, no matter where they were. And every year, when I would say you have to present, we're not ready, we don't have enough information, and nobody will be interested in what we have to say. After I forced them to present, and sometimes it was just to their colleagues and the faculty, they couldn't believe how much they knew, how much they had to share. There wasn't enough time. I could have gone on. We could have done so much more. Then they got the bug, and they wanted to share. And then time to develop and carry out action research once a month. Sometimes they would meet on their own at lunch or after school or on a weekend. Generally, though, once a month was enough for them to develop their action research, do the discussing, and then do the background work. And then structures in which to share their progress. At first, being very traditional in the way I was thinking of it, I asked them to write papers, some of which are on our website. After a while, they started asking me, can we make a video? Can I do a PowerPoint presentation? Can I adapt something I did when I presented? And so there's quite a variety of things that they present. and put up on the net, and also shared with the faculty. And what happened, because this program was pretty well situated at Highland Park, totally voluntary, is that the entire district, and that would be Highland Park and Deerfield High Schools, started a program of action research. They didn't call it that though, because you can't, anything that's established you can't give credit to. So it was inquiry, and everybody on the faculty eventually ended up doing 2-year inquiry projects as part of professional development. And we would share those, and people would say, this is some of the best learning that I've done, not only doing my own research, but also hearing what other people in the school have done. A lot of connections made. So that is the action research in a nutshell. Thank you.